Hi everyone. So I got a lot of the same questions from a lot of different people about the GoD especially, and now that the season is live and we can all play around with it a little bit more and so on, I decided to single out a few of those and post this here for a little bit more visibility basically. Maybe this can help some guys out. I'm going to talk about why I'm using Yanks. I'm going to talk about Valla's bequest and also like a few general things. So let's start with Valla's bequest first. So I already covered this in a video about, like this weird interaction and why people are using it and so on. But we got a little bit more information, and it really comes down to the attack speed breakpoints. And the thing is that there are certain breakpoints that will put you in a more favorable position to proc the 4-piece bonus that generates those, that creates those generator casts. And the internal cooldown is exactly 9 frames, and it can't really proc faster than that. So if you shoot more often than this, you don't get more of the generator projectiles. So even if like those Strafe projectiles around you see those little blue arrows, even if you shoot like let's say 6 frames per second, you will only proc it on every other attack. And this leads to why Valla is so good, because it more reliably closes the gap between this 9 frame internal cooldown. So what happens is that with Valla, you pierce through one target, and you get the first generator proc, and then you will have this 9 frame cooldown, and this Strafe projectile that is still piercing other targets behind it can proc another generator exactly when the cooldown is ready. So this is why the internal cooldown is. So this is the main reason why Valla's is so good. But you can play around that without Valla's, and that comes down to the exact frame breakpoints that you use, and the exact setup that you have. But the Strafe, if you go and do field planner, when it actually works right now, it's sometimes down because it's overloaded. But here you can see the table for the Strafe breakpoints if you just select it as a skill and you go over the breakpoint. And you can see also the minimum and the maximum values of this breakpoint. So this 9 frame breakpoint, for example, starts at 1.5 and ends at 1.67. So you have to make sure that you're somewhere in this range if you want to have the perfect breakpoint, essentially. Keep in mind, this is not possible with a one-handed weapon. It's only possible with a bow and a crossbow. And you can actually remove some points in attack speed from paragons. And if you have no other attack speed and a maximum 90% quiver, this is possible with a bow. And then with a crossbow, it's very slow. So you need a paragon, you need a nice quiver, and then like 1 attack speed roll. So just check the breakpoint for yourself, depending on what you want to do. And for one-hand crossbows, it's a little bit more tricky. And you can go for either the 6 frames or the 5 frames breakpoint. At 5 frames, you can do 2 attacks in 10 frames, and then you very reliably get the proc at 10 frames. And this will ensure like the greatest DPS, and then still Valla can still close the gap a little bit more, but not by that much anymore. The thing is, for the 5 frames breakpoint, you need 2.5 sheet APS or more, and this is actually quite a lot. So this is hard to get. You need like really nice rolls, and then you need like I think 2 or 3 items and attack speed on a weapon and so on, and then the enchanters as well. So it's not that easy. The 6 frames breakpoint is much more accessible without a lot of investment. 2.14 APS. It's not that hard. I think you need like a nice weapon and then maybe 1 roll or so, and that is fine. And you can easily check that in game as well. So this is what to keep in mind here. And there's one other thing that can help you with the procs, and that is Rocket Storm. So I get a lot of questions about Rocket Storm too, and this has to do with the same thing, that the internal cooldown is the 9 frames, and those rockets from this rune can actually produce generators from 4-piece as well. And since the rocket has kind of like its own flight pattern, and I think it actually procs on every second Strafe projectile, not on every Strafe projectile, it can hit the targets at a different time than your Strafe projectile would. And like this, because you have like overall more hits, you can close the gap between the you have this 9-second cooldown, and then sometimes you don't hit immediately on the next frame. But with rockets, you have like a little bit of a higher chance. So that's the reason why Rocket Storm is good, especially when your breakpoint is really bad and not anywhere close to this either 9 frames or like 5 or 6 frames. and it can help you out a bit to get a bit more procs. So generally, I would recommend this in basically every scenario. To just go Rocket Storm. You don't really lose much, it's 25% movement speed, but just Strafe itself gives you 160 already, and then you have tactical advantage, you have displacement, and so on. You're fast, so it doesn't really matter. Just go Rocket Storm, and this is totally fine. I have to say, it's still really difficult to predict if Valla is gonna win. Valla is gonna be a very good option for solo pushing. For group, speed farming, I would recommend just Fortress Ballista and squirts and so on. In solo pushing, that is not really an option. So Valla's Bequest is a nice choice, but personally I will probably keep trying with the Odyssey's End until it actually turns out to be much inferior than the Valla's. So we'll see. I believe that Odyssey's End with Entangling Shot can still be the best setup, or the better, or somewhere at least in the same ballpark. But yeah, we'll see in the end. And then one other thing, people keep telling me they run out of hatred a lot in Tournament 16 especially. And they ask me, what to do, and also why I'm using Yanks. And this is the reason, because it has up to 50% resource cost reduction, or even 55 if you get a 10% roll on it. They stack multiplicatively, so it's not exactly 10% more. And this can help you a lot. This basically, solo carries all your resource needs, pretty much. And if you put in Blood Vengeance as well, those two together, you will never run out of hatred, definitely. You will pretty much never run out of discipline either, because they have so much resource cost reduction that you can just spam it. With Focus Mind, you can just spam Smooth Screen forever. You can even pop in like Shadow Glide, Shadow Power, if you like, and it's still fine. If you go really fast, it's just like additional movement speed. And like this is really great. The overall setup for me looks like this right now, for example, for Tournament 16. So we have the Squirt, Nemesis, we have the Stat, then Yang's equipped, and the Quiver, Dawn Cube, and I have double Bracer. You don't really need Watsaki, so you can go whatever you like. Harrington Waistcoat would be a nice option if you feel the character is really weak. And Ring for the Ranger just to wear the Death Diggers. But you can also go like any other ring. Right now I have Focus and Restraint, for example. I still didn't get an Everise Band after farming quite a few of bounty materials. Yeah, typically I'll go Everise plus Storm of Jordan here, and then my damage will be a little weaker, obviously. But yeah, like it comes down to what you prefer and how strong your character is. And one last thing is about the dual wield versus a one-handed weapon. I also mentioned this in a guide, but here again, dual wielding, it's totally fine. In the end, it comes down to your shield damage mostly, and yeah, like the hanging arrow roll on the quiver maybe. So this is kind of like the difference. But the hanging arrow roll is not that crazy, especially in groups, because of Entangling Shot, because of Tegug and so on. So it doesn't really do all that much. 15% roll, it's still nice, but nothing crazy. And this makes dual wield totally fine, especially in groups. I would recommend dual wielding because of Ice Blink, and when you have a support DH, also because of the multi-shots. When you have a support Necro, you also get some extra crit and so on. And that makes the additional critical hit damage pretty valuable. In solo, it's generally wear the Vallas. You want to wear the Vallas if you have a good one, because it has an extra free primary. You can roll off the strafe damage, no problem. It doesn't do anything. Strafe damage is irrelevant. So you have a really nice one-handed weapon, and then the quiver, and then you just cube the dawn, for example. So these are the setups. These are some of the most answered questions for me on my stream. And I just want to put this out here for you guys, so that maybe you have like a little bit of understanding of why the things are the way they are, why especially the Valla's Bequest, I guess, is so commonly used. And we still have to see exactly about what is going to turn out to be like the optimal playstyle, the optimal attack speed setup. The thing is that just shooting at this perfect breakpoint is not enough, because it also depends on the positioning. It depends on where exactly the strafe projectiles spawn and which direction they're flying, because there's still a travel distance and so on involved with this, and that might sometimes screw up the proc, and you might not get one when you get a strafe projectile. But yeah, we'll see with time. Right now I can just say that I wouldn't invest too much into attack speed. Just make sure that when you use a bow with Odyssey's End, your quiver should not be above 19% attack speed, and you have to remove the paragons. And with crossbow, you have to invest a little bit to get like at least to a decent breakpoint. And then with the one-handed crossbow, yeah, I would go to like the 2.14 attacks per second or 2.15, and then you have an okay breakpoint that will totally be fine. And then the 2.5, it's hard to reach. You give up a lot of other stuff, and that is probably not really worth. So I hope I cleared some things up with this, and see you guys next time.